Hello, everybody. Jason W. from the Cave for the Friday show. Now we've had some problems on the channel. Your program guide has been all twisted up. We actually we did not do Wrestling with the Past yesterday because I had to take forever to play and upload the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game with my kid. And I didn't even get a chance to finish the MSG house show that I'm watching, the March 17th, 1985 show, the one right before WrestleMania. I didn't even have the show ready. So we're all jumbled. We're back on track now because it's my top 30 wrestling memories. And we are up to number 8, it looks like. Number 8. My 8th most memorable wrestling moment. So, back to the guide, the program guide. I think we'll continue with Hey, Want to Play Some Nintendo, but it's not the most popular show I do. But I'm going to do it anyway because it allows me to play these games that I would have never played and possibly would have sold at some point. But it also allows me to play with my kid. And so it doesn't seem like the most popular show, but I'm going to do it for me. I might add it on a Sunday. It might double up with the Power Hour on Sundays. Just to, who knows? I don't know. We'll see. All right. So memory number 8, wrestling memory number 8 has to do with how much I enjoyed wrestling magazines as a kid. How much in fact, I think if you add up all the textbooks or school mandated readings that I did from grade kindergarten through 12, I think if you added up all of the information that I gained through reading from school, I don't think it would equal all of the information that I gained and all of the reading that I did of wrestling magazines. I've definitely read wrestling magazines more than any other binded collection of information ever in my life. Yes, indeed. Wrestling magazines were our ability to know what was going on in the world of wrestling outside of our little territory area. We talked last episode about how I would stumble across other wrestling federations on TV, the AWA, World Class, things like that. But that's all you got. You didn't get the Pacific Northwest Federation with Buddy Rose and Matt Bourne. You didn't get that. You didn't get Continental Championship Wrestling on TV in my area anyway. You didn't get Puerto Rican wrestling, Puerto Rico, WWC with Carlos Colon and Abdul the Butcher. You never even saw that stuff, right? But you did through wrestling magazines. And that's how, even as a kid, outside of the WWF, I knew so many other people. I knew the Armstrongs, Bob Armstrong. I knew Bruiser Brody and Abdul the Butcher and Carlos Colon. I knew, all the guys from World Class. I knew so many people, because of the wrestling magazines. And I guess that's all I needed, especially the ratings section where they listed many organizations and their top 10 and their champion, and you just would learn them that way. Earliest memory of wrestling magazines, I've told you the story a couple of times. As a kid, 9-10 years old, I would go with my mother grocery shopping. And our grocery store had a massive book and magazine section. I mean, it was a back corner of the store. It was huge. A lot of Fortnite going on up there. It was huge. And I would go grocery shopping just to go read the magazines. And Even though I wouldn't do this today, at 9 years old, as soon as we walked in the door, my mother went grocery shopping and I went to the back corner of the store. And these are massive grocery stores. And I would just sit there and literally sit there because the racks, you kind of like the racks at Barnes and Noble, that you have the face, and then you have kind of a little shelf, and there's more magazines on the little bottom part. My little 9-year-old butt would sit right down there on a magazine, on the magazine shelf on the bottom, and just read one after the next and just go through them all. And there was usually about 6 or so to choose from. And I would do that every time we went grocery shopping. And if I was lucky, I'd get to bring one home with me. Now, that blows my mind. Back then, I think that parents just didn't offer up stuff as much as I do. Because if my kid was so into wrestling, if Liam or Finley was so into wrestling, and we were at a store and they were asking me for a $1.99 magazine, which in today's time, though, folks, today, I don't know what today's price of a wrestling magazine is. I would bet that it's around $6 or more. I would bet it's around $6 or more. But back then it's $1.99. So I guess I just cut myself off there, because $1.99 back then is it the equivalent of $6.99 magazine today. If my kid wanted a $6.99 magazine every month, yeah, I'd probably get it. I would. But a lot of times my mother would just be like, no, you're not getting a magazine. No magazines. I'm like, oh, all right, well, I just read them all anyway, so who cares? Now, to gross all of you out, I've told this story before, to gross all of you out, what my bold little 9-year-old self would do, because the magazine and book section was over here, and right next to it was the bulk food section, right? We had barrels and barrels and barrels of bulk candy, bulk peanuts and walnut nuts, candy, everything, right? I would go to that section, lift up the lid, take my poopy little hand, scoop up some Sour Patch Kids, put them in my coat pocket, and go sit and read the wrestling magazines, snacking the whole time on Sour Patch Kids. And I couldn't have been more obvious, because my little 9-year-old self is just looking around the whole time I'm about to steal, because this doesn't draw attention. That doesn't draw attention. My hand, folks, I'd put my hand in there and scoop them out. It's disgusting. It's disgusting, because 9-year-old hands are very clean, aren't they? They're very clean. Anyway, so that was the entry level, the introduction to magazines. Then I hit the jackpot. Because my grandfather worked for a transmission company, a transmission shop. He was kind of like the I don't know. He had a stake in it. He was part of the ownership team, and they were kind of the famous transmission, repair shop in our area. They sponsored a lot of stuff. They had a big billboard at our AAA baseball team. There were apartments above the shop, and the apartments would house some of the Rochester Red Wings, the AAA. Again, it was a Baltimore Orioles affiliate. They would house some of those guys during the season, and so it was a well-known repair shop. And down the street from the shop, no longer there, was a magazine stand or a news stand, a magazine store. I don't know what they're called back then. Bookstores? I don't know. But they weren't bookstores. They didn't sell books. They just sold magazines and probably Lotto and maybe some adult materials. I'm not sure. But whatever, the two businesses kind of helped each other out a little bit. And every month my grandfather would bring me home a box of wrestling magazines, because the owner of the newsstand would just give — my dog wants to come in, hang on. The owner of the newsstand — come on, goofball. Okay. The owner of the newsstand would just give my grandfather like 2 or 3 copies of each magazine. He would just comp them. But the weird thing about it was, I guess for whatever reason, the very top of the front cover had to be torn off of all of those magazines. Like that was the way to damage them out or whatever for the company. I have no idea. But all of my magazines from like the ages of 12 on all had a ripped front cover because they were all free from this newsstand. So I would get so many, and the newsstands would sell some of the not underground, but lesser known wrestling magazines like Wrestling Eye. And I won't be able to remember any of them. But Wrestling Eye was kind of not a really famous grocery store magazine. It was not, Bill Apter wasn't a part of it. But then my grocery store would only sell, the popular magazines. And there was the big three. There was The Wrestler, there was Inside Wrestling, and then there was my favorite, Pro Wrestling Illustrated. And those we have lovingly referred to as Apter Mags because the main guy running that company was Bill Apter. And I loved those. And I especially loved Pro Wrestling Illustrated. Pro Wrestling Illustrated, whoa, look at this. I pulled this randomly and we've got this on the back. That's insane. But Pro Wrestling Illustrated was my favorite of the Apter Mags. I loved this not just because of the full color pinup in the middle, but because of the results section. The arena report section would give me match results from all over every organization, small arena or small high school gyms, giant arenas. And I loved it. I loved seeing who beat who. Just love it. Inside Wrestling, so both the Wrestler and Inside Wrestling had little features that I liked, but Inside Wrestling I think might have even had a Where Are They Now, or the Wrestler had a Where Are They Now, which back then, that's the only way you found out where are they now. You didn't look them up on the internet. They also had, what's another feature that I liked? I don't know, the one of the magazines had what I later found out to be the fakest thing in the world. It was the phone call. I think it was called One on One or something like that. And it was they would highlight a feud or something going on, and they would have one wrestler call the other wrestler, and they would dictate the phone conversation there in the magazine. So I remember like Magnum TA and Nikita Koloff spoke on the phone and just like ripped on each other the whole time. Right? And I'm like 12 years old going, oh, where did they call from? Like, how did that happen? That's insane. Like, unbelievable. Well, it was unbelievable because it wasn't true. I think it's obvious now, but as a kid, I thought that all those interviews and all of those, one-on-one segments were real, and they weren't. They were written by the magazine. So I always was I was bummed out. I think I was like in my late 20s, early 30s or so when I, listened to a shoot interview with like Bill Apter or something, and they admitted that all those were just made up. And a lot of times the letters were made up, the letters to the editor were made up, whatever. So I loved those. Wrestling Superstars, I think the magazine was called. They would do something special each month called a Superstar Dream Match. It might have been Superstars of Wrestling, I'm not sure. But they would do a Superstar Dream Match, which again, at the time, we hadn't seen every single match, and cross-promotion was unheard of, and guys weren't jumping ship all that often. So, the Superstar Dream Match would be like Randy Savage versus Lex Luger, and they would write it out. They'd have somebody write out what would happen in that match, why the match happened, what was the build-up. It was amazing. I loved it. So that was a big favorite. WWF Magazine, I didn't realize I have two magazines with Elizabeth on both covers. But, yeah, see, here's another, I just thought of this. I kind of always thought that there were two Elizabeths. Now, as a kid, I thought this, okay? Because in a couple of photos, Elizabeth looks different. So we have this Elizabeth, and then we have this Elizabeth. They're not that different, but as a kid, I was convinced that there were two Elizabeths. Anyway, Gosh, she's pretty. Anyway, WWF magazine, believe it or not, I wasn't the biggest fan of. I wasn't the biggest. Now, this is probably the best magazine on the market at the time, right? It's full color. It's got a catalog in the middle. You can order stuff. The problem with WWF magazine for me was that I knew everything that was going on. So the WWF magazine was almost just like watching a recap show. Was just watching matches over and over again that I'd already seen. I was already fully aware of what was going on in the WWF that I didn't need the magazine. So I actually wouldn't buy this magazine. If it was given to me, that's one thing, but I wouldn't buy this. I wish that I had them all, and I would like to probably collect them for up till probably 94, but I never bought WWF magazine. I didn't get the information I needed. These were the magazines that I was buying. And there are so many great wrestling magazine memories, including the back cover here that you see, but also some other fun stuff like this. This deserves to be a poster on the wall. Just selling the VHS tape. Pro Wrestling Illustrated also had the Inquirer at the back, which offered late breaking news that happened, right before. They couldn't get a full story on it, so they had to put it here. What else did these make? These magazines had, all the back issue. You could order all the back issues. I used to love that, going through and circling which ones I wanted. Now, some of these magazines, the smaller scale ones, the non-Apter mags, and the magazines that weren't likely sold at your grocery store, were not always fit for a child. No, indeed. Some of the wrestling magazine had actual adult video order forms in them. Some with pictures with a little black bar over whatever they were trying to hide, but all the titles were still right there. There was also a lot of pictures for apartment wrestling, which, if you don't know what that is, it's this phenomenon of the 70s and early 80s where women would just wrestle each other in apartments, and sometimes clothing would come off. So some of those, lesser known magazines were bordering on, X-rated stuff. On a lighter side, a lot of the magazines had that one page of joke products, or of 99-cent, mail in 99 cents, and you can pick a stink bomb, or you can pick a X-ray goggles, or what. I loved that stuff. I loved it. In fact, some of the older ones. So this is from 87 or something, 89. I don't know. Yeah, check this out. Look at that cover. Isn't that nice? This one's a little later, late 80s, so it doesn't have, I don't think it has that joke catalog. But a lot of the older ones, a lot of the early 80s ones have this whole page of just fun little $1.99 garbage that we would all get excited about. And I had ordered from at one time. I ordered snapping gum. You pull a piece of gum out, it snaps your finger. And I ordered a book that was a safe, right? You could open the book, and it had a little compartment where you could fit about $3 in it, and then close the book and leave the book on your dresser, and the bad guys would never know where you hid your money. So, all right, folks, that's that. Wrestling memory number 8, the love affair of wrestling magazines that continues to this day. I still will collect when I can and find them. I would like to get all the PWIs from 80 to 89, and I'd like to do all the WWF magazines from, the first issue to 1994. So, all right, folks, that is all. We'll see you all next time. Good night now.